Hi, y'all. Welcome to the March Human Rights Commission meeting. We'll get started with our land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kaiapoi people have been the indigenous stewards of our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. A land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and to honor Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kaiapoi people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as the Kaiapoi Alihi. Kaiapoi descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. Thank you. So this evening, our first item will be reviewing the minutes and agenda from our previous meeting. Did we all get a chance to review those meeting minutes? Okay. Does anyone have a motion for approval?
Chair, we do have a correction to offer for the
Okay.
minutes.
It's actually on the agenda.
On the agenda?
Mhm.
Okay, not on the minutes. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Do we have a second? And I cannot see if any panelists are seconding.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, a second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any- Commissioner Kabuko, were you in favor?
Yes, sorry, aye.
Oh, no problem. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our second point, will be looking at this evening's agenda. Are there any updates to this evening's agenda? Are we comfortable moving forward with the agenda as is?
To Fabio's point that we need to vote
Mhm.
before we lose quorum.
Mhm.
We have a vote, I think, on our ad hoc committee's letter.
Okay. So let me take a look at our items.
And it lists a vote also for the UO letter of support.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, Commissioner Poindexter would be, us looking to move the We See You work group updates and letter of support, that discussion and vote, further up in the agenda. As well as,
Request for support.
the request for support. So we have one request of support, so 3 votes.
Well, we got
I
two.
believe that we had 2 as well.
Two requests, one for Pride and one for Juneteenth. Sorry, I didn't look at the package.
Only Pride Sober Circle.
Only Pride was in there. Okay,
Really?
I have to check on that. We have two. Okay.
So we have 1 request for support, 2 discussions and vote. Outside of that, and then our statement and outreach plan, that looks like it's listed as an update and discussion, but that would also be something that we would need to move on as well. So we'll want to outline that as a discussion and vote. And the departure has to happen at 6:10, correct? Was the departure time?
Yes.
I don't know, this is supposed to.
So in order to have quorum for each of those votes, we would have to prioritize all of those over the next half hour. Not allowing for much time for discussion. So how do we want to do?
Hey.
And I can try and stay till 6:15 if that helps.
Okay, yeah, that will help. I think if we can allocate 10 minutes towards each of those, that would be okay, but I think it would be dependent on Lieutenant Williams. Are you comfortable if we push your updates to 6:15? I don't want to keep you too much later.
That'd be just fine.
Okay, that would be fine. I appreciate your flexibility. So let's take our updates and essentially shift everything up. Do we have our request for support in the?
We have one of them.
We have one of them present, okay. So why don't we adjust our flow for the evening to do a request for support in the letter of support for the Human Rights Center? And then we see you work group updates. And the discussion and vote specifically for that letter of support. And then we'll end with our HRC statement and outreach plan. And try to do that in 10-minute chunks.
Chair, I just have a question because we did have another request from support for Juneteenth
Okay.
and somebody was gonna come to this meeting to join in.
Okay,
So, but I don't know if it's appropriate for this meeting or not, since it wasn't in the packet.
are they currently present?
No.
So if they come on in the next half hour, we could hold that space. I think if the commission's comfortable with that.
And could also include them in the agenda for April, because if the event is in June, we have enough time to approve
Yeah.
them. work with
Yeah.
them.
If-
Can you
if-
connect with them?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, just see when they would need that funding allocation.
Yeah.
And then, and if it's something that can be delayed to next meeting, that would be.
The only thing I think they're waiting for their venue is based on the request.
Okay.
And I think the farmer's market pavilion can be held, but
Okay.
I know that that's an urgent.
Okay. Well, let's, we'll go through our first request for support and then just give us an update after.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, well, let's promote our first request for support. Representative from the Eugene Pride Server Circle. And you're welcome to share a little bit about your proposal. And then we will if you take about 5 minutes to share about your proposal, and then we'll have 5 minutes for deliberation and vote. That would be perfect. So welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me to share about this thing that I'm very passionate about. It's called the Sober Circle, which takes place at Eugene Pride for the last 2 years, and this will be the 3rd year. At the Sober Circle, people have an opportunity to express who their identity is while still being in sobriety. A lot of times when people think of summer festivals, they think of lots of opportunities for relapse, not just for substances, but also for things like gambling addiction, shopping addiction, and what have you. So the way that I came up with this area is I wanted to have a safe zone, a place where if you needed to talk to a peer to get support for your sobriety, or if you just needed to have a place to have a picnic with the kids where you can step away from the crowds. It's an activity zone, it is a communal zone, and it is an opportunity to access supports. It is very low barrier. We ask people be approximately 5 minutes sober at the minimum. That means that the time it takes to walk from the beer garden to the sober circle is all that we require. No active use, no the games, no betting. We really want to create a nice safe zone. And the funding that we're requesting is going to be able to help enrich in that even more, not only for the activities, but also to supply funding for groups like 12 Steps, whose seventh tradition is they can't have finances, which they would normally put towards this. So the funding that's being requested helps bring more organizations and groups together to create a more holistic approach. Even though it is a harm reduction encouraged zone, abstinence is still welcomed. It is not an either or situation. And by bringing the different pathways to recovery together, it allows people who may be experiencing poly addiction, such as gambling and substances, to have more access to what local resources we have. Do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you. Anyone on the commission have any questions?
What is the financial request?
The financial request was for 2,000 in order to help cover costs for activities, supplies, as well as allow opportunities for different groups to be part of the organizing event.
Thank you.
Commissioner Booker, was that a hand?
Oh, if I did have a hand, but it was answered. I just wanted to know, was there a cost breakdown? And she pretty much said what it was for. So no question.
I did
Thank
want
you,
to point out that you don't have to be somebody in active recovery in order to access the same zone. Anybody who comes to the zone can have an opportunity to connect with resources, even if they're the family member of somebody who's experiencing addiction. I do know a couple of organizations that specifically walk alongside family members who want to help their loved ones.
I do thank you for having this sober circle. I think social programs like this and events are good for the community, especially good to have people to support you when you're going through or trying to battle an addiction. So I have family members that unfortunately lost their life due to addiction. So I'm glad that things like this exist so that people can have a support system. So thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? JD, I think one of our questions that we have is any sort of financial support over $250. The Human Rights Commission and commissioners need to know what engagement with the event would look like for commissioners. So how do you envision commissioners participating in the event?
It is an open space. I would encourage the commissioners to come and experience the space, see the different resources that are available, as well as we're going to have a continuous running meeting throughout the whole event, which means we're going to have Dharma recovery run for an hour. I'm trying to get Spanish recovery to run for an hour, as well as NA and dual diagnosis. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for anyone who wants to come and participate words. And so I would encourage the city to show up and try it out and see if maybe this is something we'd like to have at other events as well.
Thank you.
Just
Melissa?
want to add, Chair Burrell, that the city of Eugene will have a table at Pride as well, and we welcome human rights commissioners to join us there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So they have put together a wonderful proposal, answered our questions. Do any other commissioners have questions, amendments or motions on the floor?
I have two comments, I think, that will seem contradictory. My first comment is that this is a terrific proposal and a terrific idea, and I support it wholeheartedly. And my second comment is that I am concerned about our budget.
Hmm.
Because, you know, if we had an unlimited budget, I would want to give everybody a whole lot of money.
Mhm.
But our budget is getting tight. And usually we give 1,000 or 500
Mhm.
to an event. So I would like to hear a little bit of discussion about whether other commissioners have opinions about perhaps supporting this event at less than 2,000.
Those are my thoughts too, just that, looking at for at least fiscal year 25, you know, it's all been, well, $339 and then $2,000, some levels of support. What about last fiscal year what did that look like for fiscal year 24? You know, off the top of your head,
We have had about the same total amount for the HRC to award for events. When someone is requesting, or an organization is requesting more than 500, it requires HRC involvement with the event. Our bylaws doesn't specify what involvement would look like, but they want some engagement from the HRC and a commitment that some commissioners would be present at the event to report back on how it went. That's the money you have left for the year. We have 3 more meetings coming up. And at least we know of at least one another event that is has submitted a request for support, the Juneteenth Festival. So it's up for the commission to decide how much you want to award. If funds run out before the end of the fiscal year, then you'd have to deny future events.
Commissioner Booker, I see your hand.
Yeah, so you said, Fabio, we got 3 more meetings before the next fiscal year starts.
Yes,
So what month would that put us at?
we have April, May, and June, and then the commission goes on break until September.
So when does the new funds roll into the account? What month?
That would be in July 1st for the commission to start using in September. That budget proposal has not yet been presented, so we'll know what it is once that process goes through the budget commission and city council approval.
Okay, all right, that puts a lot into perspective. Thank you. Yes, I agree with you, Commissioner, on probably a decreased amount considering we have 3 more meetings and we don't understand or know who's going to actually ask us for money. So you bring up a very valid point. I didn't even look at the money amount until you brought it up. So yes, I think we only have 3,000 left. 3,300, is that correct? And some change? Or am I looking at it wrong?
That's correct.
Okay.
$2,361.
Okay, yes. So then, yeah, that 2,000 will probably take us down to 1,000, which is, so yeah, I think we could decrease. I think maybe I would say 500 or 8,000, whichever the majority of the group goes for. But I think 500 or 8,000 is reasonable considering we got 3 more meetings for the rest of the year, for a fiscal year. And I hope that JD, that you are understanding of what we're talking about, not minimizing the event or decreasing the importance of it. I know we're chatting, but I do think your event is definitely important. But I do hope you understand, just due to us only having 3,300, that we're trying to be transparent with you, and understanding that while we would decrease it from 2,000, probably to 500 or 8,000, depending on the majority of the group and how they feel about it. But yeah, that's it.
JD, I see your hand.
Thank you. And I very much respect limited finances and budgets. And if it's okay, I'd like to amend my request to 8,000. I want to make sure that Juneteenth still has access to funds. That's a very important event.
Thank you, JD. Commissioner Kabuko?
JD, I appreciate your flexibility in what the commission would have the ability to contribute. I would agree with Dr. Booker and Commissioner Poindexter. Decreasing the amount, I think, to 500 would be more reasonable because we have a lot of activities and events that do pop up in the summertime. And since we will be on break, a lot of those will probably be coming in the next couple months. And if we still have 3 meetings, and even if we had 2 requests per meeting at similar amounts, that already puts us over our budget if we were to approve the 500 today. So just kind of looking at potentials and just upcoming events that we do have in the community.
So the current request for support is for $1,000. We have $3,361 in our budget. Commissioner Kabuko is suggesting 500. Commissioner Booker has said comfort with both 500 or $1,000. Anyone else have any comment over? Okay, so what dollar figure do we have a motion on the floor for a dollar figure that we're interested in pursuing? There's a request for support for 1,000.
I can move that we support this event at 500.
Okay. Is there so there's a second on that? Any all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so move for $500 for the Sober Circle. We appreciate your proposal, JD, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
When I see your hand.
I wanted to say thank you to everybody for listening to my passion and my work behind this and for encouraging it with the funding. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, and thank you for holding that space in our community. We're excited to be there. Okay, thank you. Melissa, did the other request for support?
No,
Okay.
has not jumped in, and no email back yet.
Okay, so our next item on the floor going would be a letter of support for the UO Human Rights Center. And there were a couple commissioners that championed that support letter, so if anyone would like to talk about that process, and what's written there, and lead that discussion, floor is yours.
I'll say a little bit about it and then Commissioner Kabuko can jump in if she'd like. At our last meeting, when we had the presentation by the U of O student about the Human Rights Center, we said that WCU would draft a letter of support. And I just wanted to call everybody's attention to the fact that the letter of support that's in the package, is that right, Fabio, is not the correct one? Or was it?
It was the HRC statement that was corrected, not the letter of support.
Okay, that's right. You're right. There was so much going back and
Yeah.
forth. So the letter of support is what's in the packet. It is correct. So I hope that everybody has been able to read that. We are stating that we will enthusiastically work with them. And we're hoping that when we send this letter of support, they will include it in their funding proposals to show that they have been connected to the human rights efforts in the community. Anything to add from anybody?
Which page is that?
Yes, which page is that on?
Commissioner Booker, I see you unmuted.
Oh, yes. I didn't get time to read the letter. What was this, did they have a proposal or a request?
Well, we had offered to send them a generic letter that would go into any funding proposal that they wish to submit.
This was the proposal that the student had brought to our attention at our last meeting of having the importance of having a human rights center on campus, and just the benefits of having that resource, one for the students, for the community, and then for the school overall. And I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Poindexter for taking lead on drafting this letter. I think she did a really great job. And my sentiments still stand that I do agree that this is a great opportunity for us to not only support the student initiatives, but also have some sort of connection with them in the community to hopefully showcase the opportunities in the area to be active and to have a voice. So I appreciate Commissioner Poindexter's time putting this together.
Okay,
Thank you. And it's not in the packet, is it?
It's not in the
It's not.
packet. We
Okay, then.
apologize. It should have been included.
Mhm.
Is it
Um,
the
Is
one
the one we are
on?
displaying now on the screen?
Mhm.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
So we can read through if we want to include that in the record and have a conversation.
okay, I do remember this, because, yes, I'm on board with this, yes, I do remember now.
So let's zoom out on this document just briefly. I'm sure folks, zoom out just briefly. And so folks can see the whole document. And
Yeah.
read
They
through
can read. I was going to put in parts, when someone can read it. Would it better?
Do we need to read it out loud?
I don't think we need to read it out loud. I think we just need to take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we zoom out from the document, then we can read at our own pace, as long as everyone can see it. Is that okay for folks who are on Zoom?
Oh, yes, that's perfect.
Okay, so you can leave it right there, Fabio. Just
That's good.
we'll let it sit there. I reviewed the draft version on email. I feel comfortable with it.
Would you like a motion to approve?
Has everyone had an opportunity to review it?
No, you can send this to us individually. I'm already on agreement with this. I just hadn't had time to read the letter, but I can read the letter anytime. I agree wholeheartedly with this, with this.
Okay. Well, if everyone's had an opportunity to view it and we feel comfortable with what's written, someone can make a motion and we can approve this.
Motion to approve the letter as written.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Thank you for putting it together. Mhm.
I'm sorry, Charlie Petrick was the student who presented last month,
Mhm.
and he sent me a message to share with all of you.
Mhm.
In advance, I just wanted to reach back out to note that we are continuing to work with the provost
Mhm.
to draft charges, and we'll keep the commission updated on the status of our work. We expect to have a task force formed within the first few weeks of spring, pending a faculty strike on campus.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next item is the statement drafted by WeCU.
Actually, it was our ad hoc group,
Oh, okay.
not receiving them.
No, this is a separate statement. I believe it was a mission and value statement that was drafted by WeCU. And we wrote a lot of statements this month. We do have one by the ad hoc group as well. So there's a letter of support from the WeCU work group. This is indicated as a discussion about.
That was the letter of support to U of O.
Oh, okay, great. So we've covered it.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Okay. So we're just moving along. So then, if there's nothing else there, then we can do the updates on the WeCU mission statement work that was submitted to this packet at the end of the meeting. Yeah, this one here. So this was submitted to us. If anyone wants to speak to this, if there's any discussion or vote that needs to be. But I think that this is just an update. Our mission statement has already been submitted to the city of Eugene for approval. That was in the WCU charter. So we probably won't update our work plan with this language unless we need to make an amendment.
The background is that in the WCU meeting, people wanted an quote elevator speech
Great, okay.
to recruit with.
Okay,
And everyone felt they couldn't memorize the objective
Mhm.
from the work plan.
okay,
So this simpler statement is our elevator speech. And there's no vote to take on it. We're
Okay.
just letting you know that we pared down
great.
our little advertisement.
Okay, fabulous. Well, so I appreciate that context, and then I think let's hold space for WCU during our work group updates at the end of the meeting. And then I'd like to hear more about that process and everything that y'all have been up to. So thanks for that. Looking at our time, we have 10 minutes to do our last discussion and vote. For the evening, which is our statement drafted by the ad hoc committee. And this was a statement regarding our conversation associated with what's happening with the federal government and some of what the community impact is. So the statement that is in your packet is not the finalized draft. Commissioner Poindexter has actually shared a more recent and updated version. So if we could get the most recent version potentially shared on the screen to review, then we could go through a discussion and vote process on that.
Yes, and for those watching the meeting, if you download the meeting packet before today, there is one version of the statement, an amended version was posted to the website. So if you download the document today, the meeting packet today, you have the correct version. If not, it's posted on the two calendars where we list HRC materials.
And the correct version is just one page.
Yeah.
So, Commissioner Poindexter, would you like to talk a little bit about this statement? I know we both collaborated on what we had to do before that might.
Last month, we had quite a discussion about the fear in the community that had especially been expressed in the listening sessions. And one of the things that the commission decided was to form an ad hoc group of 4 commissioners in order to draft something that could possibly go to city council. That was my understanding of our mission, right? So we had a Zoom meeting and pulled together a statement about people's rights in the city. And the hope is that if this is approved, that we could send it to city council and possibly get it published on the website. Anything else to add?
I think it's a great overview. And so this evening, I think our goal would be approving the statement on behalf of the Human Rights Commission, sharing it with City Council, and asking them to essentially endorse what this document is stating and share it more publicly. And then for us, our next step in this would be putting together our outward facing outreach, so some digital marketing and some outward facing media, which is the next step for this ad hoc group. So as we discuss this is a kind of our stance on what's happening at this time.
Is there any way to have the whole page shown again?
We can. I was trying to show you.
Oh, you
parts,
were-
so allow
oh,
people to
thank
read
you.
it, so I was
Yes.
moving
Thank
little
you.
by little. But this is the final, those are the final 3 paragraphs.
Oh, thank you.
So any deliberation or discussion regarding what's written here? Any questions on its composition?
Commissioner Baldwin has her hand up.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked on this. It's powerful, and I think it will be powerful if it's able to be publicly put on the website as well. So I really appreciate the work of on this.
Commissioner Booker also has his hand up.
Commissioner Booker?
Oh, yes. I, I guess I would like to discuss, I don't know if it's here or we maybe can discuss it in an ad hoc, but what would be plan B if they don't agree or align with the letter that we're submitting? What other actions as a commission can we take to further our message to the people of Eugene to make sure so that they understand that we are doing our job in due diligence in terms of the parameters of what we are charged to do. If the city council doesn't agree collectively to support this.
Chair, the letter itself doesn't have a request to council. So it says a statement by the commission, so we would submit it to council, that would be entered in the public records. And we can, I don't see a request for an action by council in this letter. Were you expecting something different than like making the voice of the commission known and enter into the record and then follow up with the things discussed last meeting, which was to prepare some materials that we could put on the website, pointing people to the resources and the policies and things that we have available at the city.
Well, acknowledging that they agree with us is an action. That is a form of an action, is them publicly stating that they agree with the letter that we're putting out. That in itself is a bold action on the behalf of the city council to publicly say that they support this. The physical action would be them publishing it on whatever city council website or directory or whatever they direct people to when people go to look at who the city council is, them posting it there. So I mean, it's a twofold way that they could support this. So yeah, I think there's two actions really, but I don't know if we need to vote on those two actions in terms of them verbally acknowledging that they support it and then taking action and posting it themselves to show that support.
Yeah, I think there could be a couple of paths. One, if you all vote to approve the message as it's written, you can do that along with approving either Blake to write a cover memo to go to council or requesting that staff submit it to council with some specific requests in it. Another option would be that if you all approve it, Blake, you as chair or any representative from the Human Rights Commission could attend a council public forum, and commissions always reserve the right to speak first. And you could present it and ask there.
Yeah. So I think I like both options. And I think to what you're stating, I think the spirit of what we spoke about in the ad hoc group would be making sure that this letter is disseminated to council. I think reading it in a public forum would probably hold power. So going to a council meeting and actually reading it. And I'd be very comfortable going and doing so on behalf of the commission. And then for us putting together a memo letter on asking for, council to accept this recommendation or to endorse this recommendation publicly would be what we could do at that level. And then our next step for this would be for the city organization on what we would like to see internally for our digital marketing strategy, which I think would be our goals over the next month.
So I move what you said.
Great, okay. So the motion would be reading it at council, putting together a memo letter on action steps, and then meeting as an ad hoc committee to discuss the next steps in the digital marketing and outbound marketing for the city organization.
Is there a second?
Second. 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 Second So can
Second.
we have a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Thank you for your work on this, y'all.
Also, would you be able to let us know which meeting that you plan to read the statement at? I would like to attend, or at least, or even if we're standing together as a group, that'd be great.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll get that on a council, we'll plan for a date and then we'll send out an email to everyone. Thank you.
I don't know if it's too much of an ask. Can we put support signatures on there or no?
We could certainly do so. If we're comfortable with it. We just have to make an amendment to the document.
Because I would be curious to know which city councilors support it and which ones don't.
So I think we could put our signatures on the document, but asking them to sign it, I'm not sure about that, but we can discuss that for that memo. And I can follow up with city staff on that, Commissioner Booker.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, we did it.
We
It's
made it.
6:14.
I just want to make
Wonderful
sure before
delivery.
I check out that we're good with quorum.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
awesome.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Yep, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Appreciate you.
And I did hear back from the Juneteenth person. She'll come back in April.
Perfect. Okay. Well, good work, y'all. All right. So I'm gonna reorient ourselves on our agenda, and I think our next step will be our EPD hate and bias crimes report. Lieutenant Williams, thank you for your flexibility. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. I've got several cases to go over. And I'll try to keep it to my timeline. I know sometimes I can go a little long, so I'll try to make this as efficient as possible. The first case I'm going to talk about is from the end of February 27th. There was a burglary at the Saraha Nyingma Buddhist Institute on East 40th Avenue, where it looks like somebody threw a rock in through a window. It was a little unclear to the investigating officer and the representatives of the business what might have been taken. There was actually donations still kind of left behind, and there was some property disturbed inside. But it was a little unclear what the goal of the intrusion was. There was some initial suspicion that the date coincided with the beginning of the Tibetan New Year. And so one of the directors surmised that maybe it was related to that and some sort of bias offense against the Buddhist church and the Tibetan people. When our detective followed up the next day, that was Detective Newell. They sort of retracted that suspicion. I think they felt like it was more related to what they told him was a drug addiction type conduct. So I'm not sure if they found something else inside, but that was sort of their belief. And that was removed as a bias incident by Sergeant Borman. The next incident was a dispute between two neighbors at an apartment complex. One of them, who actually has a restraining order against another resident, found himself compelled to verbally harass a different neighbor himself with some anti-gay slurs. It was verbal. There wasn't a crime committed per se, but that the victim in that incident was referred to the Office of Equity as well as to the DOJ, and a police report was taken. And this was forwarded by the Eugene Police to the DOJ as a bias incident. Oh, and then that was, I don't think I gave you the location on that one. That was 19th and Arthur Street in Eugene. Item number 3 is this was a sort of a shoplift kind of disorderly conduct downtown at the DS Market. Unfortunately, they have a lot of trouble down there by the LTD station, where an intoxicated subject came in. The clerk declined to sell him malt liquors, so he threw a can and broke a monitor on a cash register and like a digital monitor. And he yelled a bunch of things at the clerk, one of which happened to be an anti-gay slur that seemed to be kind of unrelated to anything else that was said or done during the interaction. The officers did ask the clerk if he felt as though the crime was related to a bias against him. He said he felt like the guy was just drunk and saying mean things, and declined for it to be investigated as a bias crime. He was referred to the Office of Equity and to the DOJ for additional resources. The item number 4, I believe, is an incident where this might be a mail theft. It's 2 neighbors. One of them might have taken mail out of another neighbor's mailbox. This is down in the 3rd Avenue and High Street neighborhood. The victim thinks he saw his neighbor leave with a bundle of mail out of his mailbox and yelled a racial and anti-black slur at him. I don't have enough. This was a online report, which I mentioned at our last meeting. It's something we're kind of struggling with. There's really limited, people are able to put really limited information in these reports, and it makes it difficult for us to have much of a springboard into an investigation. So you all know we're working on adjusting what can be made through the online reporting portal and what is going to require a police officer dispatch for an investigation. So bias crimes are going to become something that cannot be reported fully online. That's going to be something that we're working through to ensure we can have an officer actually speak to people and get additional information. In the meantime, this case is assigned to Detective Peterson with a special investigations unit to try to understand more about what happened. And our last case was out on Fairfield Avenue in the Royal and Highway 99 area. This was a case where a resident in an apartment complex advises that he's autistic and he's regularly disturbed by his pounding in his neighbor's apartment. And he feels as though this noise is directed at him due to his condition, his autism spectrum condition. Interestingly, I also read this morning, one of my other duties is to read through the Eugene Police tip line. And I had a complaint or citizen tip by the other party against our complainant here, saying that she's been diligent about only hiring contractors during the daytime hours as permitted by the law, and that she feels like she's being harassed by this guy. She made no mention of his purported autism condition. And so I gave her some feedback before I knew that he was going to be on our roster today. I gave her some feedback about trying to behave reasonably and open-minded about conflict resolution with your neighbors. And these aren't easy solutions or easy problems to solve. I also tried looking into community mediation. That used to be something when I was a younger police officer that the city offered. And my initial attempts at that were, I didn't really come up with much. So I'm going to look into that a little bit more, but this might be a good case for community mediation. But there was no crime yet involved there. And the bias modifier from that report was removed until we get some additional information that might point us back in that direction. All right, well, I'm under my 10 minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Booker?
Yes, not really a question pertaining to information you got, just in reference to how we received the report. Is there a different way other than the Excel way to print out? Because when I print it, it's all mushed together or I can't read it. Is there a way to give us or send over that in like a PowerPoint or a Word document versus the Excel sheet that we get?
I'm not sure what you guys see. Maybe Fabio looks like he's ready to respond to that.
Yes, I believe he's referring to the automated report that we get every week from EPG. So that's generated by the reporting system we have in place. So it exports as an Excel spreadsheet, and it doesn't include the details of the case as Lieutenant Williams has been providing to you at the meetings. So that only lists the type of bias incident, if there was an arrest. So it should be on the meeting packet on page, look here. It's the page.
It's on 2 pages, really.
Yeah. So it is including the meeting packet. It includes the case number, the date, a description of the charge that EPG applied to it, and a description of the current status, and then the kind of hate and this and the motivating factors. So you can see things like anti-Muslim, anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-LGBTQ plus, and so on.
Yeah,
So that's the only information we have on that report.
But Fabio,
It's the
the text
Yeah.
doesn't show.
Oh,
Yeah, I
on
get
the
that.
Excel
Sorry to
document,
interrupt.
The word
Mhm.
wrap.
Dr. Booker, sorry to interrupt.
No, no.
The text isn't visible.
Mm.
So we
Oh,
should look
okay.
at PDFing it
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
We'll
we
work
can-
on that.
Yeah, I get all the information. I can't, when I print it, it's all jumbled. You can't read any of it. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
just a
Yeah.
different way of sending it to us so we can so I can actually see what's on the line.
Mhm. Yeah, we can look into that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Commissioner.
thank you, Lieutenant Williams, as always.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I'm happy to help in whatever way. I don't know anything about how these reports are generated for you guys, but if we're going to provide you with information, it's got to be legible. So we can certainly, I can talk with Fabio about that.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional questions on the hate and bias reports? Lieutenant Williams, one of my questions for you would be, as a commission, when we receive reports of this nature, what would be a method for us to effectively liaison with victims of hate crimes or provide meaningful or substantive feedback on the reports that you provide to us in through your lens?
Great question.
Well, we are pretty careful about releasing any, especially cautious about releasing information related to victims of crimes. That's why we keep some of these reports pretty confidential. One option that comes to mind that I'm sure Fabio could probably explore with you or may have a perspective on would be some kind of liaisoning with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. They are a resource. They're the direct line of resource to people affected by these issues, whether they contact the police department or not. So that's one option. I myself haven't been down there, so I'm not exactly sure how that interface looks. But I do, we got a lot of information and training materials provided that actually provided to our department. And so beyond that, I'm not entirely sure.
Well, thank you. I think that's something, especially the level of depth and detail that you provide us. I think that's been a conversation that we want to make sure that we're also stewarding our role and communicating back to you. So I just wanted to make sure that, if there's anything more on our end that we can do to provide support, that that we're here, and if something comes to mind or if you see something, don't hesitate to suggest for us. I just appreciate the level of depth and detail that you're providing our commission with these reports, and it's giving us a much stronger sense of these incidents and how we may be able to provide that follow-up. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I think we're getting a lot of interface with the community and with the City of Eugene and the Human Rights Commission and the Police Commission, and through all kinds of forums. So we're doing the best we can with what the community's expectations are. We're trying to meet that. I see what I bring to you as hopefully helpful to you guys in guiding your understanding the issues in the community. And if there's anything different that you need from me, please let me know. But I feel like we're getting a lot of support in this realm, and we're kind of trying to stay on top of the emerging best practices and expectations from the community. We want our more marginalized with less represented community members to feel they have advocates both in this room and at the police department.
Yeah, thank you. And Commissioner Booker, I saw your hand come up. Just wanted to honor that.
Just pretty much a statement. I would like to see some kind of action come from Lieutenant Williams being here, not necessarily from him, but from us as a commission, because I kind of feel like he comes and reads these reports and then our hands are tied in terms of not reaching out to the victim, really not being able to follow up on any of these stories. So it's kind of like we hear it and it's just like an awe moment, like, oh, like that's all we can do. So I would like to see some kind of action come from Lieutenant Williams being here, that we can take as a commission. I think your suggestion was great about reaching out to some of the victims of these incidents and just let them know that they can come here and if nothing, tell their side of the story. You know, at the end of our meeting. But maybe a suggestion would be having a seat on our commission for Office of Equity and Inclusion, where they come to every meeting and tell us about victims that maybe we should know, or if that's the only action that can come out of this. But I just would like to see some kind of action from us with Lieutenant Williams coming here reading these reports.
I don't know if you're mentioned or not in the materials and resources that are provided to victims that contact the Office of Equity, but again, there may be an avenue there to engage more deeply with people that are in these positions. I'm not exactly sure, but there may be something there.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that this will warrant some discussion with our city staff here that support us, and then there's a few of us that I think have been exploring that question, so we will we'll continue to ask and see if we can follow up at our next commission meeting with a couple ideas. So I appreciate your response and yeah, your report. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Okay, so looking at our agenda, one of our items that we usually start with, so I'm looking at kind of our orientation of this, having space for leadership and liaison announcements, and then we'll go into HRC budget and that flow there. But now all of our time sensitive items have been completed. So we'll hold space for commissioner reports and liaison reports. So anyone have anything they'd like to share about their work in the community, things they participated in?
I can start with one update. There have been some know your rights and risks trainings and events throughout the community recently, and I dropped into the first one just to help Melissa unload some things. And so one thing I wanted to say is that I met a new resource, the director of a resource called Pacific Refugee Support Group. They just moved to Eugene in mid-January and are very interested in the Human Rights Commission. And I think, Melissa, you already know them.
I met her that night.
Right, right, okay, so I got their brochure and they have a Know Your Rights card for immigrants to carry. It's bilingual card, and the director's name is Judy Smith. So anyone who is interested, again, it's a regional office and they are called Pacific Refugee Support Group. So perhaps if we have time, we can invite them to present for a little bit. And I also wanted to say that there are 3 more of these events coming up very soon. Friday, March the 21st at Lavender Network. Monday, March 24th at the growers market. And then Thursday, March 27th, again at Lavender Network. And Melissa, if you want to say more about involvement in that from commissioners, please go ahead.
Well, I would definitely recommend attending the trainings if you can. I went to the Human Rights Observer one and the Know Your Rights ones last week, along with you, and those are really excellent. And these upcoming ones, I think, are gonna be even bigger because it's in larger spaces, which is great. And there's gonna be also accompaniment trainings available soon in early May. This is accompaniment means helping transport and be with the immigrant or refugee who has to do check-ins or has to do ICE meetings or even just going grocery shopping. So if any of you are interested, please let me know and I'll share those dates with you. Other than that, I think you covered it, Cynthia. Oh, I did want to say, we are going to be ordering some more of those red cards. So if you want some to distribute, let me know and I will make sure you get some. And we'll be getting the English and Spanish one.
You see that?
Yeah, thank you. It's okay. Thanks, Monica. Well, thank you. Commissioner Booker?
Oh, yes, I know you and I discussed it, but I didn't know if we had to vote on it about me moving to a secondary position on the police commission. Do we need to discuss that, or I'm really not sure what we need to do in order to make that happen?
Yeah, so I don't think we would have to move forward with the vote since Commissioner Bradley has already taken on that second. I think the point for the commission would be you confirming your formal resignation from the police commission liaison assignment. And then Commissioner Bradley being comfortable with assuming that primary role, which is something that we would need to discuss here. And then it moves on to the city organization to go through a formal approval process.
Yeah, just to be, the mayor actually has to appoint someone, and so we need to find out if we can send an alternate. I'm not sure that you can send an alternate until after she approves someone.
So this is, yeah, this would be us moving forward with that process.
Gotcha.
For making the recommendation to the mayor. Yeah. Yeah, so.
And from my understanding, if we have two people signed, you have to resign. Because I'm from my understanding, we're supposed to have two people signed there, so why would a resignation be?
Yeah, so the current process, so it's actually different from our other positions, our liaison positions, because it has to get the mayor approval. So although our sheet is set up in a way that says primary and secondary, this is actually a position that does not have a secondary. So but what we would explore is if we had a police commission meeting in which we could not have a liaison attend, then as long as we don't have 3 consecutive meetings without attendance, we still hold our voting position on that. But the only way that we do have a voting position for that primary is if we have someone who's been approved by the mayor to serve in that post. One thing that I think that we should explore with city staff is in that period in which we need a second. And this is something that's going to come up with my meeting with the city manager and mayor. Because in that absence, us not having a voting seat did provide kind of a challenge for us to have our say in that space. So there's a kind of a breakdown in our organizational procedures there. That being said,
Yeah, well, just to clarify why that is,
Mhm.
the commission seat on the police commission is actually a product of the police commission code and rules. And so that's why we can't send an alternate. No police commissioner is allowed to send a voting alternate, including the Human Rights Commission member. So it's set by their rules, not the rules that govern the HRC. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so I think our follow-up with them would be asking what should we do if we want to maintain a capacity voting as an HRC in those leave of absence periods, which we've discovered now there's a breakdown and our point of engagement that we will need to explore. So that'll be a topic upcoming. So what we would need to move forward with that process is just you signifying that you're resigning.
Okay.
And then us just moving forward the recommendation with Commissioner Bradley.
Okay, if there's a meeting that you need me to attend before I can resign, let me know in order to hold the voting seat. I'm not really sure. Because it's, especially now that I understand how this whole process goes. So if you need me to just attend until we can get it switched, let me know if I need to do that. And then I can submit the resignation letter. Or I can submit it now and still attend until we get somebody in that position, just so we don't lose our voting seat. But whatever you need me to do, just let me know and I'll do that until.
Okay, well, I think with our current engagement that you would be able to offer a resignation, and then we just have to send that recommendation over to the mayor. And because we have a meeting with them next week, we should be able to have that conversation and move forward, unless there's any timeline that I'd be unaware of from any city staff. But I think it would be fine if Commissioner Booker resigned and we sent
Yeah,
that
I was just
recommendation over.
looking and it appears that the next full police commission meeting isn't until April.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think.
So we should be fine. So, yeah. So I
Okay, no
appreciate
worries.
your service on that, Commissioner Booker. You've been stewarding that position very well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was, I just think I need to make room for someone else to serve on that commission. Plus, like I discussed with you, there's places where I feel like my intelligence and efforts, community-wise, would be more useful. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Commissioner Booker.
Or,
So Commissioner Bradley, then our next step would just be moving forward with that recommendation for you to hold that capacity. And so we'll talk about that at the upcoming meeting with the city manager and mayor.
Sure.
Okay. So that being said, one of my announcements for the HRC was going to be that we are having that meeting. So Vice Chair and I will be meeting over the next week to put together our materials to send over to the city manager and mayor before that quarterly meeting. So if anyone has any questions or specific issues that you would like us to follow up with, feel free to just share that with us via email, and then we'll make sure that that's included. And then we'll report back on the outcome of that meeting at our next HRC meeting. But we'll be providing a general report on our work plan and further discussion about different human rights issues that have been expressed to us by commissioners and the public.
Yeah, and Chair, we are trying to confirm that meeting for the 27th or 28th of March.
Yeah,
It's pending confirmation, but
yeah,
we'll try for one of those 2 dates.
great. So we'll let you know. So anyone can send anything over to myself or Commissioner Hira by next Wednesday. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay, anyone else for liaison reports or updates? Okay, so we'll move forward on our next agenda item, which is our HRC sponsorship budget. And I believe this section is being guided.
It's the next page.
Oh, okay. So we want to, okay, so you've shifted the language on that. So it'll be moving forward with the updates and discussion from the city budget.
That will be the next item. It's just like, that one is the.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So it would be the city budget conversation currently?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's you and Mia?
That was a placeholder for continuing that conversation with HRC on how to express budget priorities. So the city manager will prepare a budget proposal, and that should be known by April 15th. And last meeting, we mentioned that the HRC in previous budget cycles has come forward council and the budget committee and presented some priorities that align with the commission's work plan. And that is something that is available to the commission. But that would require commissioners identifying from the city, either from the proposal and commenting on the proposal itself, or if that's not yet known, the commission can just in general terms express recommendations or interests or requests to the budget commission and city council.
Great.
So our participation will just be talking about the process and how we can go about doing that.
So will we be interested in learning a little bit more about that process and engagement?
When does the city know what its budget is?
The budget will be released on April 18th.
I see, thank you.
The proposal, and then we have a process to the Budget Commission and Council for adoption, and then what is the final date for them to approve?
The council approves the final budget and recommendation from the budget committee at the end of June.
So I think what we would be looking at as a commission is identifying the key supports for various programs and positions in the community that align with our goals associated with the human rights work plan. And us talking about that proposed budget and then providing a recommendation on what we think should be involved or included or prioritized in that budget. So in your packets, we've included the strategic plan for the city, which outlines a few of the human rights goals, and that's on the very last page of your packet. So for us, what we would probably want to do is put together a small group of folks to discuss this further, or talk to our work groups and our upcoming work group meetings and looking at what our budget priorities would be. And then sharing that information with the city of Eugene. And then after that budget's proposed, us having the opportunity to provide public comment or share what we feel would be, you know, the most appropriate or most needed expenditures to be allowed. There's obviously a lot going on in that space, so keeping up with that process will be a task over the next month. So for us, I think outlining those key priorities, when we look at our primary supports for the Human Rights Commission, I think one of our most significant areas of support that we should be outlining is the need for the Office of Equity and Community Engagement to have staffing and to have those staff members as a part of our Human Rights Commission support system. So we'd be well positioned to state about the impact of those staff and reference why this department holds a significant value to the community and the commission itself. And then thinking about our commission as being something that is in code. And so we are something, we're a mandated commission by code. And so what do we as a mandated commission need to effectively steward our responsibilities for public meeting laws and for liaisoning with the community through the scope of our work plan, which would mean having dedicated staff members to steward that, as we're all volunteers serving in this public capacity. But there's a significant amount of back-end work that needs to be done to effectively steward a commission that's mandated by code. So for us, I think that putting together a simple statement expressing the need for the Office of Equity and Community Engagement, and then any other aspects of city expenditures that would steward our work plan items that were approved by City Council would probably be our most effective way to liaison and communicate about budget priorities. So that's my lens on that. As far as action items, I think that our next step on that would be saying, you know, do we want to put together a small group of individuals to draft a statement that could be read, or to, you know, share this with council? We do have an upcoming council presentation or public comment period during council session to read our statement regarding what's happening at a federal level that we approved at this meeting. This would certainly be something that we could share at a council meeting as well, if we got the approval of the commission to produce that document to be read. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions on that?
What
Okay.
is, I'm sorry, what is the length? It's a 2-month comment period, is that correct? From April to June?
Between April and mid-May, they usually hold
Okay.
3 to 4 meetings.
Okay, thank you.
So looking at our timeline as a commission, so if April 18th is when that budget proposal is submitted,
Mhm.
would it make the most sense for our commission to have something drafted and submitted before April 18th, or to be discussing what in that budget you know, is prioritized after the 18th? And I think that's a decision that we all would need to make.
it seems to me that we should see the budget
Okay,
before we develop comments.
and
You may have one issue with the dates, because if the manager is releasing the budget proposal by April 18th or on that date, and your next meeting is on April 15th,
Right.
the commission would not have time to know what would be in the proposal until May. Um,
so what we could do is we could outline key priorities for inclusion in that budget. Or we could request budgetary materials to be sent to us that we could review on the 18th and outline that. So we could make a statement surrounding this is what our priority areas are as a commission, and submit those to the city. I think we're well positioned with an upcoming quarterly meeting to have a discussion. And so it could be simple. If we can all agree that we would be prioritizing the Office of Equity and Community Engagement and any positions that associate with our work plan. Those may be recommendations that we could speak about and priorities that we could speak about at a quarterly meeting. And then see what that budget is proposed as on the 18th. But if you all are comfortable with me speaking on behalf of our commission at that quarterly meeting about some of our needs and priorities, as long as that meeting occurs before those budget proposals are put in, then our perspective could be considered before the 18th. So if we're comfortable with that, then I can move forward with putting together a few of those materials with Vice Chair Hira before our quarterly meeting. You're comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Commend you. Yeah, definitely. Round of applause, Chair. I love everything you said in your lens. And definitely support you speaking pretty much to get support for everything you just said. I think everything you talked about makes us more actionable and visible, especially considering that we're a governed body, or would you say we're commissioned, but they have to have it pretty much. So yeah, I definitely think this makes us have a stronger voice in the community, and that's definitely what we need, considering that the majority of the time we're being told that we're just an advisory committee.
Yeah, great. I'm glad that resonated. And I think when we're talking about these fiscal allocations, discussing our alignment and code requirements is very important. And as a person who's been serving with this body for quite a while, I can definitely state that there's a lot of work that happens both with your public officials and your staff liaisons. So really putting into the scope what it takes to effectively store this position and stay in compliance with code will be a lens that I can certainly share. So. Okay, so I think moving forward with that conversation, Vice Chair Hira and I will discuss some of the key priorities that we need, speaking broadly about the supports that the Human Rights Commission would need to effectively serve the community and stay in compliance with code. And then on the 18th, we will see that budget that's proposed, and then at our next meeting, I think that we hold an item for us to discuss our plan for engaging with that budget and what it will look like after that budget proposal comes out, whether that's going to be writing a statement, speaking at a council meeting to outline priorities, or starting that position with our council liaison to speak on behalf of the commission as a report. So we've got 3 modalities for following up. Feel comfortable with that if you all are. Okay. Great. Any other information or requests before we move on to our next item on the agenda?
I want to join on the phone. I have to go, but
Yeah.
thank you. I'll join on the phone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Great. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is engaging with the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group updates. And then we do have some follow-up with the WeCU work group that will come after that. So we are set until 7:30 this evening, so we're moving through our agenda pretty expeditiously, so I can provide some lens on the homelessness and poverty work group updates. Homelessness and poverty work group set some key areas of priority for their work group. And the work plan priorities were shared at our last commission meeting, then we reviewed homelessness and poverty work group meeting. Our last homelessness and poverty work group meeting centered largely on discussions around 3.14, 3.17, and then we did have some discussion around a proposal for a council work session, and we had some discussion about the unsanctioned postings protocol recommendation, and some of the materials that were sent to us via inquiry from the city of Eugene. So our ongoing discussion around 3.14 encompasses two primary areas. So the first area is thinking about our response to natural disaster and so the impact of natural disaster on our shelter ecosystem and our ability to effectively support individuals that may be displaced or impacted by natural disaster. So Commissioner Lowe, who can't be here tonight, is actually at the same place as Commissioner Baldwin. Shared some information around the hazards mitigation plan and basically the metropolitan plan for any sort of natural disaster response. And part of the discussion that we've had is thinking about what state and county programs are available for individuals who may be impacted by natural disaster, what types of natural disasters would need to be considered. And then Commissioner Lowe did put forward a request to see if anyone from our emergency management division could provide any context for the commission. And so that'll be something the city staff is currently liaisoning to see who might be a representative that could speak to us in an upcoming meeting. So we'll plan on that probably in the next meeting or the following meeting based off that inquiry. So that was a really fruitful conversation. And if we have any questions around that we can prepare for that, public official that will be coming and speaking with us, I think that would be really great. I want that to be a fruitful dialogue and for us to think about what's actionable. And I've challenged the homelessness and poverty work group to put together some questions as well, so that we can kind of consolidate and think about this. One of the biggest areas that we've discussed has been rental protections. The fires in LA came up, and thinking about price hikes for rental properties in LA and how that happened. And so the city of Eugene currently through the Renters Protection Committee has a protective framework in between lease periods, or sorry, not in between lease periods, but for lease renewals. So there's a 10% cap at the state of Oregon for the amount your rent can go up in between years. So if you're an individual, you're a tenant, you're signing a lease, your property owner can only increase that lease amount by 10%. However, there is a regulatory gap in between the amount that an apartment unit can go up in between tenants. And so this is something that we need to examine for housing providers and think about. So if there are vacant units, how do natural disasters impact market factors, and how do market factors increase or impact access to adequate housing opportunities, which is what we saw in California in the most recent fire. Was although they had some of those protective frameworks, we didn't have any framework to mitigate that price hike for vacant units. So I think that that's something that the homelessness and poverty work group really centered in on as being a vulnerability for at-risk populations or people that may be victims of disaster programs. Another area that we probably want to examine is any regulatory factors that would impact an individual's ability to rebuild a home. So if you look at natural disasters that have happened in Lane County, Blue River being, one from my significant, like my most recent experience, is that there were folks that were displaced by wildfire that could not rebuild homes due to existing environmental and regulatory factors, which then excluded them from reestablishing in communities that were impacted. So I think us thinking about how that would impact, Eugenians, their ability to rebuild or have housing access, like what types of regulatory mechanisms are in place that people would need to be aware of, will be really important. So those are some of the areas that the homelessness and poverty work group bounced around. And they're going to be putting together some questions for that. So the second area with 3.14 was the unsanctioned posting protocol notice. You all were sent over these documents. So there were 3 inquiries. We asked for the protocols and basically the procedural materials for folks who are being posted for established and non-established camps. You'll see the posting process for a legally established campsite on public property, and then the prohibited temporary structure enclosure in parks and open space. In a more colloquial manner, what we're talking about are 72-hour notices on public ways and then 2-hour notices in public parks. We're talking about what that interaction looks like in parks and open spaces for folks that are getting 24-hour notices. And then in your packet, you actually see the posting for the public way, the 72-hour public way posting. So what the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group is going to be working on over the next few weeks, going into their next meeting, is actually taking our unsanctioned posting protocol recommendation and highlighting what areas that we could add addendums to this procedure to adopt some of the procedural recommendations that we've implemented. So Richard Self speaks about the need for utilizing the shelter funder tool during that process. So that's in that unsanctioned postings protocol piece, right? So us thinking about what does this interaction look like with enforcement, parks and open space staff, and then what types of messaging are being provided to individuals, what types of considerations are being provided. So we're going to be interacting with these documents. The city manager did commit to reviewing our unsanctioned postings protocol recommendation at our last quarterly meeting, and that was back in October. So we'll be having follow-up with the city manager about her read through that document and her thoughts on some of those procedural recommendations. And then we'll be taking these procedures and actually talking about them and thinking about where we might implement some of that to try to have a more compassionate and supportive response for folks who are existing in those spaces. So that's some of the primary updates for 3.14 and the work on the unsanctioned posting protocol recommendations. And then our last area that we discussed was a recommendation by Councilor Groves that was made in November, which focused on 3 areas. So the work session request form from November 4th is included in your packet, and I believe we spoke a little bit about this at our last commission meeting. But the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group is prepared to provide some recommendations for the direct and disparate impacts of some of the questions that are being posed in the work session request form from Councilor Groves. So City Council is looking to answer questions associated with the transference of objects and money from vehicles on public ways. There is some inquiry about the impact of shopping cart theft and shopping carts being used in parks and open spaces, on bike paths and public ways. And then there was some additional inquiry surrounding the elimination sale of stolen undocumented scrap metal. Each of those areas have some potential impacts that we discussed. This intersects with multiple protected class statuses. So we did talk about the potential disparate impact for elderly populations who may be leaving a grocery store and walk away with a shopping cart, which was a narrative that one work group member discussed. Children who may take a shopping cart outside of a parking lot. And Then considerations for what does it look like if an unhoused person has a shopping cart that they found. So, you know, the city of Eugene has a practice of, you know, clearing encampments. It's part of our prohibited camping protocols. And so that camp clearance event causes individuals to have to migrate within our community. So our question is, if an individual is asked to leave an encampment, is using a shopping cart to get from point A to point B, they did not participate in stealing that shopping cart, what will be our measure for determining whether interaction with that stolen property is actually something that was executed on by the individual? So if I'm walking down the street and I start moving a shopping cart because it's in a public way, am I going to have some sort of citation or some sort of misconduct associated with theft now happening to me because I touched a shopping cart that might be stolen? So what does that look like? How will this be implemented? What will those direct impacts look like? And those are questions that I would need answered. Looking at that, and the members of the Homelessness Poverty Work Group were also very concerned about. When we were talking about scrap metal, I think one of the things we talked about is kind of learning a little bit more about the business impact. So there may be individuals who are interacting with scrap metal in a small business capacity or in a way of making money. We have a lot of people who engage in gig economy. There's a lot of transactions on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. There's a lot of different commerce that happens. So thinking if there might be any impact on people who are earning income, but not necessarily engaging in stealing property. So what does the interaction with the property look like? Then the third piece was just us talking about any sort of ordinance that inhibits our ability to be charitable or have a transference of goods. I shared that I would have implications for kind of my expression of identity. Part of my spiritual and personal beliefs are around generosity. So any sort of ordinance that would regulate my ability to transfer money or food to someone who's expressing being impoverished or hungry would actually have really big personal implications for myself. And I think present some pretty questionable frameworks about regulating my engagement with members of my community. We talked about the narrative of a family member or a family leaving church. So looking at someone who might be leaving church, what does enforcement look like? I'm driving home from church. I hand a sandwich out the window to an individual who's asking for food, and EPD officer is behind me or behind that family. Does that individual get pulled over and cited for that transference of goods? If that's the case, I'm heavily opposed to this policy because I think that anything that inhibits our ability to be generous to our community is pretty damning. So for us, I would like to know what the enforcement of that policy would look like if there have been incidents of safety complaints. Is there data to sustain that transference is causing harm or has caused harm? Or is this a action that's looking to reduce the visibility of people who are impoverished in our community and a potential overstep of government in our ability to express our social identities and personal and spiritual practices? So I think those are the considerations that came up at the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group meeting. Questions that we've sent over to the city of Eugene requesting some of that data. So we'll be waiting on a response from that inquiry and then having further conversation about it, hopefully at the next Homelessness and Poverty Work Group meeting. So that's everything the Homelessness and Poverty Work Group is up to. If you got any questions on it, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll keep on chatting at our upcoming work group meeting. So
Like, I have one clarification. How are you getting these questions to the work session? Do they get submitted in writing?
yeah, so following our work group meeting, I sent over a few inquiries to the Office of Equity and Community Engagement. So we have a couple of data requests to see if those can be fulfilled, just to sustain some of our knowledge on what prompted.
I'm sorry, I meant the questions about the proposed policy. All of your wonderful questions about what happens if you get.
Yeah, so that's an inquiry. So we actually asked some of those
okay.
questions.
All right, thank you.
And some of those may not be deliberated upon until the work sessions themselves.
Right.
So our engagement preemptively is hoping to shed a perspective from the
Yes.
Human Rights Commission to
Mhm.
inform that dialogue and make sure that those, that voice is represented in that discussion.
Thank you.
Mhm. So, any other questions on homelessness party work group? Fabulous. Okay, so our next agenda item is the We See You work group updates. We got a little bit about what y'all have done, but I would love for you to reiterate a little bit about what you've been up to and what your process has looked like.
Commissioner Kabuko asked me to start updating and then she'll chime in. I wanted to say a few things quickly about these listening sessions. Because I have now listened to all 6. And I wanted to say this is a wonderful process by city staff to elicit feedback and actually pay attention to it. And it's also really impressive that so many people who are vulnerable are coming out in the evening, in person, to speak to city staff who are people with power. It's an amazing process. And I had found it also to be a very culturally respectful process. Each group is treated according to their culture. So it's been remarkable to watch this. And I'd already said last month that there was a lot of fear. But I also wanted to say that even though each group is talking about wanting their fear acknowledged and their trauma acknowledged, each group is also speaking in very empowered ways. People are feeling ready to protect each other as well and to resist depression. Some of the things that they've been asking about are, I think, really impressive. Like, how do you get equity in access to spaces like rec centers, Holt Center, parks, and libraries? And unless we hear them saying that they don't have equity in access, we don't really know that they don't. And just one of the things that impressed me the most was a comment that was made by someone in the African American and African immigrant group who said, if the issues are real and the participation in meetings is meaningful, people will show up, people will engage. And it's not the ways of engagement and communication that matter to us, it's whether you are fully engaging us. So I just wanted to say, for those of you who haven't seen all 6 listening sessions, that I am very eager to see the notes. And I do hope that we can review them as a commission. And I hope that we can think about action steps. So real quickly, after you presented, Blake, to the council and got our work plan approved, my understanding is that WeCU is allowed to be a staff advisory group, which gives us more flexibility in how we meet and when we meet and how often we meet and with how many people. And then quarterly, we will have a formal meeting. And thirdly, we are participating in the third Thursday gatherings, which are community gatherings. And I'm going to ask Melissa to say something about the one that's coming up on the 20th.
It's already Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what I'd like to share is that we really want to rebuild WeCU and add new members, and we've been discussing, good candidates, and we want to use these third Thursday events or other informal events to get to know some of these candidates and connect with them. But in part of this, because this third Thursday event is community-wide, regional-wide, and is partnering with the Communities of Color and Allies Network. It's again, another great avenue for WeSeeU to engage in and also helps me plan those events, so thank you. But yeah, our next event's Thursday night at the Eugene Atrium Building from 4 to 7. We are getting catering from Panditas, so good food, and we have several candidates for WeSeeU attending as well.
Thank you. Anything to add, Commissioner Kabuko? I know I've forgotten some things.
I think you both covered a ton of what we talked about. I feel like we had just quite a bit happening in our meetings, even though we have a very small group. So I'm hoping with some of our outreach and upcoming events, we'll be able to add more people to our group and just see a better connection in our community as well. So thank you both for taking on so much as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the work on WeSeeU. It's very exciting to hear WeSeeU updates and the traction y'all are having. So look forward to the future events with that. Well, our next item on the agenda is looking at Office of Equity and Community Engagement updates. So Fabio and Melissa, if there's anything you want to share?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I want to go back to that conversation about the hate and hate crimes and bias incidents and how victims can get support or get in touch with the commission, or how the commission can support the victims. So as you heard from Lieutenant Williams, when people present a hate crime complaint or report to Eugene Police, they have our cards with information and they give it to victims. And it's up for each person who is victimized to decide if they want to contact us. So we never get their contact information. So we don't know who is reporting those cases to EPD, and that is protected for a reason. So some people do decide to reach out to us and they will call and say, I would like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. Sometimes they don't say they have reported yet to Eugene Police. So those conversations are confidential and we treat them from a victim perspective. And then after we listen to their stories, we may offer some support and connections. In the past, some people have asked for specific cultural connections. So when we have members of the commission who share an identity with the victims, we may contact commissioners individually and ask if they would like to talk to that person. That has been helpful in the past. I would say especially with members of the Arab and Muslim community when that has happened. We used to have members of the commission who share their identity and they engage in those conversations, and that is very helpful to people. So that's one of the ways in which we may reach out to commissioners individually. We usually never bring those cases to the commission meeting because it's a public meeting. And depending on the case, we may risk exposing the victims. So we try not to share any identifiable information at the meetings for that reason. But we do let people know there is some support available and we may connect on one of us requests by victims. For the next meeting, my hope is that I can bring you a full report on all the bias incidents that have been reported in the previous year. I did share a summary, but that was unofficial because some of the cases are still being cleared, and I'm asking the state bias hotline to share the data for the entire year with us. We did share some additional data with them recently, so that would be part of the final report. And if we have the data all cleaned up and ready, I may present it to you at the April meeting. And then we'll know if cases are increasing or not, which communities are being mostly impacted. And the commission can use that information to provide guidance to staff or policy direction as needed. Thanks, Commissioner Poindexter, for attending the listening sessions. We did the last one yesterday. That was with the Native American community. It was a really interesting meeting and something that has been, we have been trying to identify what is the best way to meet with each group. So for the 6 listening sessions, we invited members of each community to help us organize the meetings and advise and invite people. And for example, with the one that we had yesterday, they advised us, okay, we should have food, we should have the elders eating first before we go to the food. Let's have a prayer. And that has been very helpful to have members of the community leading the way and letting us know how they'd like us to organize the meetings. Something else that has been difficult is that because they are government-held spaces and we want to gather the information, we have been recording the meetings for note-taking purposes only. And we also have been making the meetings, we have been promoting them on social media and on our calendar. So some people, we had some debates about should those be private meetings by invite only? And one of the challenges is that if it's by invite only, we're always getting the same usual suspect, the people we already know. And for each one of the listening sessions, we got people who had never engaged before with the city. And that was really interesting to get those new perspectives being shared at the meetings. Yesterday, we had someone who moved to the city just 5 months ago from another state and wanted to engage with the Native American community here. So that was great for us to get this fresh perspective. So in community engagement, we are always debating how open to make something, what are the drawbacks and the challenge. But despite all the fear that some people are experiencing, they are feeling comfortable sharing their stories and complaints and recommendations and demands at those meetings. The information that has been collected is being now analyzed, and we try to anonymize as much as we can. So we can only extract the information that can help the city better engage with community members from each group moving forward. Those recommendations should become available soon, and we can share that with the commission and present. So those are part of the community engagement guidelines process we are conducting right now. Also part of our updates is our work on planning with neighborhood organizations. We are doing 2 community neighborhood planning processes at the same time. One is with the Bethel area, which includes Train Song, the Bethel Neighborhood Association, plus parts of West Eugene and the Industrial Corridor. We finished the first phase with Bethel last week. We held a meeting on sustainability. And now we are analyzing all the information gathered through those 7 meetings, plus people submitting information to the Engage Eugene page. And we will have something for the community to react to before we advance to prioritizing action items and recommendations from the community. So those have been interesting. Our commission chair saw some of that work through his other capacity, through the agency he works for. And similarly to the listening sessions, we have received people who have been engaging for a long time and people who had never been to a neighborhood social meeting that just learned of the events through the postcards or listened to the radio or some other announcement and showed up. And that was interesting for people to get to know what is already in place. So the format for the meetings was advised by community members. So for each meeting, we had city staff and community organizations and other jurisdictions presenting what is already in place or what is being planned for. And then after they learn more about the context, people could ask questions. And for every single meeting, we had to go on overtime and stay after the posted time answering questions. So it has been very, very interesting for the staff. And despite the challenges, the community seems very understanding of the challenges that we have to deal with in delivering public services. So that has been remarkable, especially for communities that have been waiting for a long time to get those planning processes underway. So the community participation has been really impressive, and that support as well. We should get more updates about that process once we analyze the data that has been collected. For the university area, we have 4 neighborhood associations as well. West University, South University, Amazon, and Fairmount. And we have 2 more meetings with those neighborhood associations. The coming one is on transportation and the last one on sustainability. And then we go into the same process with Bethel. In addition to those 2, we have River Road and Santa Clara who did their process using the old neighborhood planning methodology. And we are trying to support them with prioritization and tracking of the over 150 items that we're including in their action plan. So we're discussing what is the best format for tracking all that work, and wherever we utilize for River Road and Santa Clara could be copied for Bethel and Universe in terms of tracking advancements in the priorities that they have identified. At the listening session yesterday, there was actually a request for the Human Rights Commission. It was towards the end when we had already left. A community member asked about the HRC having representative of the native communities. And they also shared something regarding the language that has been used, including in our land acknowledgement, about federally recognized tribes. They say that language excludes some of the tribes that do not yet have federal recognition. And they understand that that's used in government to government processes, but they were, the mission is that there are different ways of making those statements inclusive of all the native people, not just the ones that have the current status of federal recognition. And we'll be following up on that and providing you something in the written when we finalize analyzing the notes. But that was interesting that they believe that should be more engagement from the Human Rights Commission with the native community, perhaps by having a seat or a liaison or someone appointed to that kind of work. Any questions on that? If we have time, we have a few more minutes left.
We do, yeah. Commissioner Booker?
Oh, yes, it was good to, this is the Office of Equity and Inclusion update?
Yes.
Okay, because I've been gone on leave for a couple months, and seeing that this is the Office of Equity and Inclusion, I do know that there are several things going on within the Black community that I didn't hear any kind of report on or talked about. So I would like to know, especially before I left, there was a letter that was drafted and submitted that addressed verbiage and actions made by Fabio concerning the NAACP, and them no longer wanting to be involved with the Human Rights Commission. So I'm wondering, is any accountability or accountability is a good word. Any accountability steps have been taken by you, Fabio, to reach out to NAACP to see what they need in order to reconcile our relationship, considering the letter was drafted and addressed you directly?
So Dr. Booker, I'll just let you know that the city organization has continued to engage with NAACP. And the Office of Equity and Community Engagement has actually been invited to recent events put on by the NAACP. And as for the rest, I'm not gonna discuss personnel issues here.
Well, that relationship still is amended. I mean, have they said that they want to reconcile and join human rights in meetings or discussions so that we understand the impact and incidents and vulnerabilities that are happening within the Black community? Or is that something that we're just going to overlook?
I think you might be aware of requests or conversations that I'm not aware of. I have not heard a request for anyone to engage with the Human Rights Commission from the NAACP.
So that's why has any steps been taken on behalf of the people that they addressed in that letter to reconcile that relationship?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters here.
So the answer is no.
Certainly we follow up. I will say that, again, city leaders and others have continued to engage with the NAACP.
I don't know, but that relationship is still no longer there, right?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Booker, one of the pieces with this, Commissioner Poindexter shared a little bit about that listening session with us after attending. There was a listening session with the Black community that this topic came up. This was 2 commission meetings ago,
Mhm.
where we talked a little bit about what was shared by some of the participants in that. And so I think looking at that relationship, the NAACP, some of the conversation that we had at our last quarterly meeting regarding the personnel matter and some of the concerns were brought up during that meeting. Our follow-up with the commission is that we are looking to engage the NAACP as a commission. So where there may be damage to the institutional relationship that was conveyed through the letter that Commissioner Hawkins shared. We have, for example, been invited to provide our Human Rights Commission Award at the NAACP Gala. We were invited to participate in the MLK Day March as a commission. So there's engagement with our body, with the NAACP right now, regardless of that institutional relationship. Just so that you have that awareness of some, communications that have happened during that leave period.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just appreciate the update. I just want to make sure that relationship's been mended or working on mending.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kabuka? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Booker. Commissioner Kabuka?
In regards to the connection with the Native American tribes, is there a particular group that we're trying to connect with? I do have some contacts that I can reach out to, so I wasn't sure if there's a group in particular or someone that you're already talking with.
I missed that question, I'm sorry.
I can answer that. So there are 2 things. One is the government to government relationship. So we do have a group of staff that has been engaging directly with the tribes that have Eugene as a service area. So that is one work. The other thing was a comment offered at the listening session with the Native American indigenous people last night, in which a member of the community suggested that the HRC could have a representative or a liaison with Native American communities. The format or the specific group wasn't discussed. It was a recommendation for us to explore. So those would be coming up when we finalize the notes from the listening sessions. And going, Dr. Booker, to your comment, we are also going to share the notes from the listening session with the Black and African American community. So all those notes will be summarized and presented to the commission as we advance in that work.
Look forward to hearing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to connect with the Native American groups as needed.
Thank you, Commissioner Kabuka. Well, I think that aligns very much with our exploratory item on work plan 2.9. So that piece about liaisoning more effectively with Indigenous communities and tribal nations. So I'm really excited that topic came up and we can start to explore that. And then I think looking at the piece on the listening sessions that I'd really like our commission to do and to be thinking about as we receive this feedback. I'm going to share something that Commissioner Poindexter, you shared from the listening session with the Black community, was that a lot of the folks involved in that dialogue said they've been saying this for a very long time. And that there is an exhaustion on repeating that same piece, the same ask, the same requests. And so I think what I'm compelled to ask our commission to do is to really explore those recommendations and say, what can we make actionable? What can we advise council and the city organization to do? And really think about this so that as we explore this, as we update, whether it's updating the multicultural needs assessment, the 2017 Marginalized Voices report, let's think about how we can really actuate on this and put forward recommendations based off of all the work that's been done as a commission. And because our perception and interpretation of what's being shared is going to be really valuable for that guidance as we can liaison through all our capacities and unique identities that we have. So I want us to really examine this and think about what in these recommendations could provide substantive qualitative data for recommendations that we've been discussing, but haven't necessarily had the capacity to store those listening sessions on our own. And so I really appreciate the work and the reporting that's being done there, because I think that this is something that we need to be actionable on and to really integrate into our recommendations and our policy recommendations. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing to steward that. It's really exciting that you were able to attend all six. It's awesome. So, Commissioner Booker, I see your hand.
Oh, yeah. I definitely like to say, I definitely share those sentiments of what you just expressed. But also just for a note, for record, sometimes the biggest action is inaction. And I think that, especially from the Black community perspective, is the scope needs to widen to look at things that no action has been taken, has not been taken at all, when concerns, evidence, everything else has been presented and the city or certain people refuse to act upon, their position of power. So I think sometimes even bigger than looking at what actions can be taken, the biggest action I think that the Black community see is the inaction.
Thank you, Commissioner Booker. So, Office of Equity and Community Engagement, I had one more question that actually shared what you had shared around our follow-up for the follow-up for hate crimes. And I think one of the things that might promote engagement, that liaison capacity that you shared, and I believe that work was being done with the Arab Muslim community through Commissioner Hamadi. Was that Eve that was doing some of that support work? I remember he had talked to me a little bit about some of his liaisoning within that community for victim assistance. And what I think we as a commission might really benefit from is if we shared our particular affinities or social paradigms that we would be willing or able to provide victim support, and that you knew who to call upon for different protected groups that may be subject to hate or bias incidents. And I think that might steward some of that liaisoning that was happening more organically with previous commissioners. And for you all to be aware of our level of comfort as commissioners for being pulled into those conversations might be really powerful, and give us a more meaningful pathway for engagement. So I think if that's something that you all are comfortable with and that the commission is comfortable with, we may be able to offer ourselves and say, we have this affinity, we have this association. Please offer my name or my email or my communication if someone of this identity paradigm is impacted. And then I think that allows us to do some of that public liaisoning that we've been wanting to do, and might steward a similar model that I think was happening more organically. So if that's something that y'all are open to, I would love to discuss that a little bit further, and see how our commission might want to steward that relationship. So how does that sound to you all? I saw a thumbs up from Commissioner Booker, so, okay. So we'll follow up and then let's think about that relationship, and open that up. Because I think that's a way that we have that really some of our most meaningful capacity. And then we can steward some of that public liaisoning and service supports that I think we all have the desire to do. Okay. So looking at our time, we are 4 minutes from the end of our meeting. Are there any other announcements from Office of Equity and Community Engagement?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So our last item on the agenda is public comment. So is there anyone who's expressed a desire for public comment?
We had one
the chat
person,
portal?
No.
sorry, Chair, we had one person sign up through email,
Okay.
but is no longer attending, but he did submit several comments through email, which I'm going
Okay.
to share with the commission, and those include audio files. So
Okay.
I will forward those to you.
Okay.
If you're unable to listen to the files, let me know and I'll find a different way to share those with you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, look forward to reviewing that. Okay, well, if we don't have any more public comment, I think that we're ready to adjourn. So I appreciate y'all and the really substantive conversation we've had this evening. And moving forward with a couple of motions to get commissioners out on time was fabulous. So I'm glad that we could take the time to review and prep those materials, and a lot of work happened this month, so I appreciate y'all. So think we can motion to adjourn, if I can get a second.
A second.
Okay, all in favor? All right. Welcome you all. Thank you. Have a great weekend and look forward to seeing you next time.
Wonderful job, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, right back at you, Commissioner Booker. Appreciate you.
Hey Fabio, are you certain those audio files are saved?